So I've just started recording the session. Great. Okay. So I'm just going to share my screen with you. Okay, can everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Great. Okay, so our workshop today is on Zapier. And what Zapier does is it's an application that connects applications, pretty much. So without any development, you don't need to be a developer, you don't need to be a programmer. We can connect Action Step with different programs. And the way a Zap works is we have two things. We have a trigger and we have an action. So if I look at my Zaps, and we do have a lot. So we'll go to a very basic one here, which is when we create a contact in Action Step, this Zap will create the contact in 0. So what we have here is a trigger, and the trigger is when something happens, we want it to do something else, either in Action Step or in a different application. So our trigger is when a new contact is created in Action Step. Our action is we want that same contact created or updated in 0. So when we're on our Zapier homepage, which is like this, all we need to do is click here to make a Zap, or we create a Zap from here. And there are hundreds of applications, or thousands, I should say, of applications that work together. So if you're looking to explore, if we click on explore down here, this will go through all the different ways that Zapier can connect different apps. And there are thousands, so I'm not going to be able to go through all the Zaps, or the apps, sorry, that Zapier can use, but you can see a lot of them here. So if I have a look at my Zaps, I'll just take you through some examples of the Zaps that I've set up. So they're business use examples of how you may use Zapier. So this one will add a file note to Teams when a file note is added in Action Step. I also have a different one that creates a Teams channel every time you create a new matter in Action Step. So when you create your matter, it creates a Teams channel. Then every time you put a file note into Action Step, it creates that file note in that channel as well. Obviously, creating contacts. When you create a contact in Action Step, we can create contacts in other applications, and we can do it all at once. So for example, with this one, we can create that contact in Xero, Outlook, and Mailchimp all at the same time. Create a Slack channel when a new matter is opened in Action Step, and that was the Teams channel as well. Email from Gmail when a new matter is created. And that was an example that we did in a workshop where every time a matter was created, they wanted to send a welcome email to the client from Gmail. There was another one during the workshop, which is to send an email when a user creates a file note in Action Step. So this was a small practice where the lawyer has a PA, and every time he made a file note, he wanted that file note emailed to his PA so that she would just automatically get a notification of when something's happened on a file. So we set that up. Send file note to Slack when created in Action Step. Teams channel post. So when someone posts something on a Teams channel, that saves as a file note in Action Step. Now these ones are really interesting here, and these are forms. So with Plato form, we created a contact form, and we can send that form. We can actually update the form from action step so that it fills in the client's, say, name and email address. That form link can then be sent to the client and they can update that form. And once they hit submit, their contact details are updated in action step.
Okay.
These two are also really interesting. They use an app called Cognito Forms. Cognito Forms is a form builder and it has logic. So logic means it asks certain questions, and depending on your answer, it can ask further questions. So for example, with a will, you could say, do you want to be buried? Yes, no. And if yes, you can then have a range of questions about burial. But if you say no, then it doesn't ask those questions. So they're built on logic. And what the will form can do is, with this one here, we can send a link to a client. They can fill in all the details about their will, executor, guarantor, whatever they like, all their wishes. And that actually automatically updates the custom data against that matter in action step. And then you can proceed with a will template from there.
Okay.
This one here, you could actually send the form to a new client, so somebody who is not in action step. And once that form's filled in, it will create the contact, the client, it will create the matter, and also fill in all the custom data as well. And then you're ready to generate that will template based on the custom data that's come in from that form. So there's some examples of how you would use Zapier in a business sense, but obviously sky's really the limit because there's a bunch of things we can do. Now, as you start using it, if we go to create Zap, okay, and then we look at action step. So we want our trigger to happen in action step. We then choose our event. Now, these are all the events that can start a trigger. So when a new matter is created, a new contact is added, a new task, a new file note, a new matter participant, matter step change. So maybe you want it when the matter is set to closed, or updated matter. Now, we've added a lot to these and we can continually add them as well. So getting feedback from people who are trying to set these up where these don't exist is really helpful to us. So always let us know if you're trying to do something that's not here.
Mm-hmm.
So if we say new matter, we then choose our action step account. And then we test our trigger. So what this will do is this will go into our action step database and just check when a new matter has been created. So it will give you some test data. Okay, so we can see here that this was a new matter that was created. So it's given me the matter ID, the name, the step. We go continue. And then our trigger is set up. So this trigger is whenever a new matter is added in action step. And then we have some actions. So obviously we can pick different applications. But if we click on action step, you can see here we have different events. So again, we may want a matter created in action step. So this is an action. We can create a file note, create a task, add a participant to a matter, create a company contact, individual contact, update a file note, update matter custom field value, create a disbursement, update a task, update company contact, update individual contact, create a time entry, update a matter. Now also we can search as well. So it may be that we've got our new matter here. We may want to find who's the primary contact on that matter, and we want those details to come across. So we want the contact's name. So we can find the contact from here. Find matter custom field is actually finding custom data fields within our matters, and then retrieving them is actually getting the value from that custom data field. And we can also find tax codes. But once again, if you are trying to do anything and the event isn't there, please let us know. We have developed quite a lot of triggers and events, but there will be more out there. It's just getting people to use it. Okay, does all of that make sense?
Yeah, I think so.
Great. Okay. So what we'll look at here is the email when user creates a file note in action step. Okay, so our trigger is a new file note in action step. Okay, so we can see that our file note that has brought through a system file note. So within action step, we have two different types of file notes. We have our user file notes, which is when you go in and you say, I've had a meeting with Mr. Jones and he has told me, and you write a file note. We then have system file notes, and they're updated all the time. So every time you go into a matter and do something, it creates a system file note.
Mm-hmm.
So we have to decide when we're doing our trigger, did we want our event to happen every time there's a user note and a system note, or do we want to distinguish between the two? Okay, so we might decide that we only want user file notes. We don't want system file notes. See, every time a system file note's created, I don't want an email sent out because that's just going to be too much emails that are going out. So we have here what's called a filter. So if you go on the plus, we have here filter, format, and delay. So a filter means that we can decide what goes through the Zap and what doesn't. So as I said, I do not want system file notes to make an email. So we can filter those out. And we can only continue the Zap. And now we can see all the information about our file note. You can see there's a source here that says system. So I only want to continue if the source does not contain system.
Mm-hmm.
So that means that the Zap will only continue if it's a user file note, not if it's a system file note. So it tells me my Zap wouldn't have continued, which is what the outcome I expected.
Mm-hmm.
However, if a user had entered the note, it will continue. Then what we want to do is we've got our file note and we know the ID of the matter that that file note came from. So we want to find the actual matter because in the file note, in the email itself, I want to bring in the matter name and some other details about the matter, which I can't get unless I find the matter. So we search by the ID. And then with this new file note and action step, if you click on that, it tells you all the data that it will bring into Zapier. So I can see that the action ID for that file note is here, 89. And if I continue, Zapier will then go in and find 89. And it will bring all that information in. I'll just get rid of this one. Okay. Now we can set up, so it's found my matter, and if I have a look here, you can then see all the data it's brought in about the matter that that file note belongs to. And then I can set up my email. So who the email's going to, and I can see here that I want the ID, so the matter number, the matter name, that there's been a file note created, and then the text of that file note. And that's what we can bring in. We can also add attachment if we wanted to. Okay, so that's all finished. And when we're finished, we can turn on our Zap. Okay, so my Zap is now on. And if we go into our action step, and I'm just going to create a file note. Okay, and then you can see that that's come through to my emails. And that's got my matter number, the name, the file note that's created, and then my text in the body. So before, I will take you through one of the forms examples just to show you how we find custom data fields, how we retrieve them, and how we update them. Before I do that, is there a simple Zap that someone can think of that we may want to create together? All of these Zaps I will create as templates so that you can copy the links and play with them yourselves. So you're not starting from scratch. So is there anyone that maybe we create together that anyone can think of that would be helpful?
Maybe when you create a new contact in Action Step, it adds it to your mailing program.
Yep. Okie doke.
Next stop is Brunswick Street. Change here for routine.
Sure. Okay, so we're going to create this Zap from scratch. So our trigger is in Action Step because it's creating a contact in Action Step. And it will be a new contact. Okay, so we set up our account in Action Step. Now, when you copy across the Zaps, you have the opportunity then to input all your own account details, obviously, so that it will work with your own systems. So this is bringing an example of a recently entered contact. Okay. And then we'll say we want to enter it in Mailchimp, for example. We'll just say that that's our marketing app. And then we'll add a subscriber. Okay, so we'll add them to the audience. So the subscriber email. Now, again, when we add that new contact in action step, this shows you all the fields that come into Zapier. So we've got our email here. So it can update the existing. Now we can also enter the first name, the last name. Now we can enter address, phone number, but I'm not going to enter those now. Okay, so we can test that and continue. Okay, so that's now on. And I'm going to create. I'm just going to open my Mailchimp in a different window so that I can make sure that they're coming across and show you. Okay, so what we'll do is add our contact into our action step. Okay. And I'm going to save that down. Okay, and that contact will be added to my Mailchimp. I am trying to access it to show you, but unfortunately it doesn't look like I can. So did anyone have any questions about setting that up or how that works at all?
No, it looks pretty straightforward.
I just have a quick question. So when you're adding it to your mailing program, is it possible to choose, like if you have, say, 10 different lists, what lists they go on depending on, say, you've chosen like client type or list type in action step?
Yep. So I think the best way to do that would be, say, if you have all different lists. So you may have one for conveyancing, one for family law, one for different areas of law. Then when this new, you probably want to do it when a new participant is added to a particular matter. So if a participant is added to a conveyancing matter, then you would set your trigger to be when a new participant is added to a matter, then bring in the details about that matter. So what matter type it is, And if it is matter type conveyancing, then you add it to the conveyancing list. So you would have different audiences set up for your different lists in Mailchimp.
Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, that's how you'd set that up. And some of these can get quite involved as well. So I'll take you through one of the will form next. So they can get quite involved. However, once it's set up and working, it's done. So it is setting it up, but once you have it working, then it runs. So every time you add that contact, it will run through all those steps. And you just name your Zaps as well. Otherwise, they get very messy. Okay, so the one I will take you through is this one here. Now, this is quite a long one. Okay, so our trigger here is when there's a new Cognito form that's submitted. So a new entry in a form. Okay, so when this form is submitted, it brings in all of this data. Then we want to create that contact. In the action step. Okay, so we can bring in all of these details. From the form that they fill out. We can then create the actual, say, will matter in action step automatically. Because we know if they've filled out that form that they want a will created. Okay. So we can see there's a problem here. Okay. So that's who you want to assign to the matter. The action type. So this is a wills matter. The action name, so their first name, last name, and then will. Whether you want a file reference. So this is just the same as if we're creating a matter in Action Step, but we're doing it through Zapier. Then we've created our client, so we can bring in their ID here to add them as the client on the matter. And these are all the custom data fields, which we can enter, but just not yet. So you can see that that's gone green. So that means that it would work and that would create the matter in Action Step. So as you go through each step, you want those ticks to go green. Now this will find the matter that we've just set up. Then what we want to do for every single custom data field within a matter, you have to find the field's name. So you put in the field name, and this is the custom data field name that you use in Action Step. And all that does is that looks in Action Step and it finds that custom field. Now you have to do that for every single custom field that you want updated. So there's quite a lot here. And then after we found it, we want to retrieve that field value. So that field value, if it's been filled in, it will retrieve the value that's in that custom data field. So for example, executor 1, if the executor, the first executor on the will is Betty White, then Betty White, the text will be retrieved when you retrieve the matter custom field value. But even if it's null, then we retrieve it and it's blank. It will just return a null. But after we've retrieved it, we can then update it, which means we've found that custom data field within our matter. We've then retrieved a value, whether that value be nothing or a text. We can then update it. So we can update that custom data field from our Cognito form. And all that happens automatically. So then our custom data in our matter is updated directly from the customer's form. And all of this happens in the background. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. What I'm going to see is if I can turn one on and demonstrate it for you. So you've got to remember when dealing with custom data fields that we find, retrieve, update. So I'm just going to see if I can demonstrate it for you. Great. So this one here works from Cognito Forms. So if I create a matter, now this one I'm creating, it may be say an existing client who wants a will. So what we would do then is compose an email. Okay. So here's my link to my will questionnaire, and I've asked her to put her matter ID into the matter ID reference when filling out the form, and that links it to this one. The other one that we were just working on will create the contact and matter for them, and they don't need to do this step. It was just two different ways of doing it. And then I would send that to the client. Okay, so this is how we build our form here. Okay, so this is my form. So that's the matter ID. And now we'll just go through, and I'll just quickly running out of names. Okay, let's say cremated. Oh, do a beach. So we're going to say yes there. Now I'm going to hit submit. Okay, so the client gets this response when that questionnaire has been done. And what happens is we also get an email to notify us that a client has completed that questionnaire, and that comes through from Cognito Forms itself. Then our Zap will work in the background. So if you're looking at your Zap history, you can click on Zap history here, and this will tell you what's running. Zap run, and this will tell you that this one's currently playing. So this one we set up, we've turned it on, and because we've entered that form, that's our trigger. So that started this Zap. So if you ever have problem with Zaps, you can come in here and look at how they're running and where they may have stopped or not worked. So if we click in here, we can see that it's going through the steps. So where there's a tick, it means it's found what it's needed to, and it's just up to here. So it takes a little while, but what it's doing is it's going into that matter, it's finding all those custom data fields, it's retrieving all the values, and then it's going to update with all the values we just put in that form. So that'll take a little while to come through. So just while we wait for that, did anyone have any questions at all? Maybe about ways you could use Zapier?
No.
Or too much of an information overload at the moment?
No, I think it's a matter of getting in and playing with it.
Yeah. For me, obviously updating contacts in various applications is, to me, was an eye-opener, but the forms for me were a big eye-opener.
Yeah, well, I think the forms, I'm very interested in that Cognito forms, because I have a web developer who charges me each time I want to make some sort of change to our online form, and I can see that all I need is a link from our website over to Cognito forms, and that'll populate our action step system just the same way as our existing method does.
And also obviously with Cognito, you can go in and change what you need to when you like, really.
Well, I saw there that it's got drop-down options, so that if you have a drop-down, you choose a particular option, it gives you one set of questions, and if you choose a different one, it'll give you another set. Well, that's what I'm after.
Yeah, that's right. That's the logic that's built into those forms. It's quite incredible. So I'll just jump in here so we can see now that our fields are coming across. There you go. So everything from that form has just updated here. And what I will show you, so if we go in here and I generate, okay, so I'm just going to show you now the wheel itself. Can you all see that?
Yeah.
Okay, so now we can see that that wheel is generated. And also down here, this clause is added because it was a yes. If it had been a no, that wouldn't be added.
Right.
So you can see that from sending that questionnaire to actually drafting that wheel was probably 5 minutes.
Yeah.
So, and also, if for any reason the client has filled something out wrong, or you've spoken to them on the phone and they've changed their answers, it's an easy edit, change them accordingly, save and regenerate. And then our wheel will be updated.
Yeah.
Now, I've just used wheel as an example. It was just something I could easily see what fields were required and be able to make quite a good template. But obviously you can use that for a variety of other things.
And how was that coded into like the wheel in the Word doc?
So it's used as merge fields.
Okay, yeah.
So what we do have, and we're doing a webinar on very shortly, it should be in about a week, is we do have a new Word add-on that works in Microsoft Word as long as you have Microsoft Office 365. And it's a template builder.
Okay.
So before we used to have to get our merge fields out of Action Step and put them manually into our Word documents. Now we can actually use the builder. So you can be typing your wheel, and on the side, you'll be able to find the merge fields that you require and add them in.
Oh, that sounds great. Yeah.
So we're going to do a webinar on that in a week's time, and I'll do some workshops around that as well. So that'll make building these templates much easier. Was there any other questions at all?
No, I just want to get in and start playing around with it.
Ah, good. That's the idea.
Natasha, in terms of subscribing to Zapier, does every user in the office have to subscribe, or?
No, so Zapier runs more on the number of tasks. So if we jump into Zapier, I think, is it in here? Just wondering with so the starter plan here, I think, is $20 a month, and there's 750 tasks that can run within that month. Okay. So it's how many times, so a task is one run through of the Zap.
Okay.
So it actually, the more you use it, the more you pay, not the more subscribers.
Mhm.
If that makes sense?
So does that equate, say, to one will is one action?
That's right.
Yeah, okay.
One Zap.
So we can do 750 wills.
It's through the Zaps.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And you can have as many different Zaps.
As you like going at the same time.
Okay.
So it is worthwhile if you are looking at subscribing that you obviously get the most benefit out of using up those apps.
Okay.
I think in terms, well, definitely in terms of, say, for example, that will matter. I think that time benefit is pretty cost effective. And it's just making sure that the Zaps you put in, you know, do save that time where that subscription's worthwhile.
All right. Okay.
Thank you.
No worries. Was there any other questions at all?
No. I just have to say, too, I was very impressed with you, Stacey, working on the train and then up into the office.
And I'm magically in the office. Well, I'm dialing in from Melbourne, so it's much earlier here.
Yeah, same here.
Oh yeah, okay. There you go.
That's very keen. It's great to see, though. So if there's no further questions, we can all get 10 minutes back. And feel free to email me, though, with any questions if everyone's got my details. And hopefully next week, I'll send out a starter kit, which will have a video from the workshop, video of the webinar, and also I'll update all the user guides, and we should have some template Zaps as well that you can download yourselves.
Okay. Yep.
Okay,
That's
great.
Thank you very much, Natasha. It's been great.
I'm glad. Thanks very much. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye all.
Bye.